Hi, everyone. I think we can start. So welcome to the Good Design Assembly. I want to greet my fellow Filipinos today. Happy Independence Day. And I hope everyone here is having a great Saturday morning so far. So I'm Polina, your host for today's talk on rallying women in and for design. So the Good Design Assembly has gathered studios and organizations from Asia to discuss what it means to design for social impact and how we can do it together. So Works of Heart initiated this space because we wanted to learn from other social impact studios. And our dreams for this kept getting bigger until we realized that we should be inviting more people to this conversation and not just designers. We do believe that collaboration, after all, is a big part of social impact design. So for those who aren't as familiar, Works of Heart is a Filipino social impact design studio that creates strategies and stories with and for mission-based organizations to engage, transform, and shape a nation that is free. So I have here with me three other women who are members of Works of Heart that will help me facilitate today's discussion. Please introduce yourselves.
Hello, I'm Belle Weber. I'm from Works of Art. I'm an illustrator and graphic designer.
Hello, I'm Rafi Borromeo. I'm also that.
Hi everyone, I'm Jamie. I'm a project manager and copywriter in Works of Art, and we're very excited for this talk.
Yes. Thank you, Belle, Rafi, and Jamie. We will be hearing from them again later on during the discussion. So for today's talk, we will be discussing rallying women in and for design. And we all know that pursuing different goals cuts across differences and has the capacity to bring people together. Now, women creatives have navigated the space well and are constantly rallying people in this manner, though, of course, not without its share of difficulties. So in this conversation with In-ah Shin and Dang Sering, we'll hear about the roles women and design play in building spaces for communities and pushing for causes, as well as the learnings they have had along the way. And I know you're all very excited to hear speakers talk, so let's get right into it. So we have a great lineup of women creatives today, and our first speaker is In-ah Shin from South Korea. She is a graphic designer who goes by the name Scenery of Today. She co-founded the Feminist Designer Social Club, which aims to create space for female designers to support each other with work and create more together. As a group, they tackle the gender discriminatory structure of work in the design industry in South Korea and want to establish new systems of design practice for feminist perspectives. I'll now give the floor to In-ah.
Hello everyone. Nice to meet you. Let me screen share first. Is everyone seeing my screen? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Hi, today I'm going to talk about mainly about the organization that I founded in 2019. It's called Feminist Designer Social Club. In short, we just call it FDSC. And on the background, I have my cat, and he's now playing with some box at the moment, so excuse me for the noise. Feminist Designer Social Club is basically a community for feminist graphic designers and people who work around graphic design industry. We launched it on July 15th on 2018, and on the day we had open day explaining what FDSC is, what we believe in, and what we want to do. And 50 people who attended that event joined the community, and that's how we started. So to join FDSC, one has to attend the open day and fully understand what we're trying to do and then register. So we so far had 5 open days. We try to do it biannually, so 2 times a year. Every time we get double or quadruple people who wants to register. So for the first open day, we had around 200 people who wanted to attend the open day, but we didn't expect that crowd. So we only had space for 50 people. So that's why we started up with 50 people. And then on the second and third and fourth and fifth, as you can see at the bottom of the page, we continually get around 100 people who wants to join. But unfortunately, we, for the sustainability reasons, we try to keep our group's growth small so we can manage it. So at the moment, we have around 168 members, active members, and they have really range of experiences like and work in a different settings. So like me, some people run an independent studio or work as a freelancer, but majority of our members are working in-house at the companies or startups and stuff like that. We basically use our Slack channel as a communication tool. So we have like pet channels, so we can share our dogs and cats. We share the questions, anything that we've done, and we can organize, like anyone can organize a meetup and stuff like that. We share some resources using Notion and Google Drive. So most of our activities are online. And some of the offline activities pre-COVID era, there was a program called Studio Attack, where we visit feminist designer studio and learn how they work. We do studies together. This picture, we learned about how to think like a businesswoman, because most of the times designers only think about their works and not so familiar with how to run a studio, and oftentimes struggle with like taxes and managing the get the right fees and stuff like that. So that was that. We also do sports days and work out together, because health is one of the most things that keeps us working. And biannually, we also have General Assembly, where we gather together and share what we've done for past 6 months and just network. So we're Koreans, so we love karaoke. So that's I think Winter General Assembly in 2019. So after the COVID, we had to do it all online, but we think it is important to have fun when we gather. So each General Assembly have its own theme. So at the last year on the summer General Assembly, we had the theme of online overseas tour. So everyone had to dress up like a tourist and join the General Assembly. And we also did karaoke again. We organize conferences and talks to discuss about important agendas using our social network like Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We use that space to promote designers. We also work with students and organize portfolio review or student workshops. We publish podcasts. We also have writing clubs, so we published those writings. Last year, we started an online conference, and we also have a regional branch. So last year, designers at Dejan area gathered together and had an online meetup called CISO. That's the portfolio review. Last year, we were participants in this exhibition at the MMCA. So we organized a program called FDSC News and 40 Designs You Should Know, where the designers introduce other designers who they admire. And there are more. So last year, from July to November, we had about 10 programs, 22 gatherings, and 1 studio attack program. So it is quite hard to tell what exactly we do at FTSC, because there are so many things that I have to tell, not to miss out something, but I'm sure I've missed out something that has happened, because there are so many programs happening. So now I'm going to tell you, sorry, my conditioning talking. Anyways, so now I'm going back to 2016 when this hashtag movement started. This is where I sort of saw myself as a woman in design industry for the first time. Under this hashtag movement, we witnessed so many curators, designers, and people who work with them or sexual predatory behaviors. And at that time, there were small groups of individuals who was working to make the industry better. However, I was so skeptical about it because I thought individual efforts were too small, and I saw whole system has to change. So at that time, I thought the government change should come first before the individual efforts. And it was so dependent on a few key feminist activists at that time. So I was worried about how long they can work doing their activism, because it was not making any money. They were doing it just because they thought it was right. And there is huge perception that it is not ethical to earn money from activism. So there was this, I was wondering if it is sustainable to do the activism. But at the same time, I felt like a bystander of this whole system. So if I'm just being skeptical and just critical about what's happening and not do anything, then I'm just part of the system and just making it happen all the time. So at the end, I've done some researches and activities on my own, and then realized that it is actually each individual's everyday life that has to change if the governmental change is not, it's coming slowly. So it is better to see small changes first, and eventually those small changes come together and becomes a big change. So and even if the government changes and introduce gender mainstreaming structures, it will not work if everyone is just living the life of before. So I wanted to create a culture where change is inevitable. This is where I thought about the idea of FDSC. So in 2016, there was this commonly asked question in graphic design industry in Korea. Everyone was asking, where have all women designers disappeared to? Because the people we see on the magazine or conferences were mostly men. mostly if there is 10 designers on the book, maybe 9 will be men and just 1 will be woman. But that question had a limitation, because when you ask the question, you only see like dark, gloomy future of yourself. Like it feels like you're not going to last till like 10 years. So I changed that question to what made all women designers to disappear, to look at the structure that makes women designer disappear. So with that gender discriminating structure, we suggested 7 things that we can do. And that's what we talk about at our open day. And when I was organizing FDSC, there were few things that I thought important, that it should be a pleasurable experience. I have a picture of blood orange there. It's my personal experience with that. Like when I first tasted blood orange when I was in Italy, that was the best thing I've ever tasted. And when you have that strong, pleasurable experience, it is quite hard to go back to where you were. So I wanted to FDSC to be like a space where you can feel liberated and true to yourself and really pleasurable. So you can't imagine the world to go back to the world that you were in before. And I wanted everyone to have tangible change. That means like have like small but very obvious changes in everyone's life. So that's why we promote the designers to offer the opportunity, exposure and opportunity to be exposed, because oftentimes it is quite hard. And also some people get the job or through FDSC, and even the small questions like how do you use like this feature in InDesign or Photoshop, you can just ask on our channel and you get the answer. That's small changes, because most of the times women designers find themselves quite isolated. So I think I've emphasized enough about the individual level change, but I wanted the experience to be to happen in individual level. So there are many layers of activities that you can join. You can just put emojis on a Slack channel. That's maybe enough for you for the moment. Or you can join to organize an event, because not every event was organized by me. It was organized by our members. So if you feel like there should be a workshop for students, you can suggest that and find people who can work with you. And there was need to make sure that everyone is on the same page as we go on, because there was some difference between what we think about feminist designer. So last year we've created a community guideline outlining what we think feminist designer is and how should we communicate with each other. And also we ran a reading club, reading about feminist design discourses, or like dealing with queering design or decolonizing design and stuff like that. So that's what's happening with FDSC at the moment. And I think my time should be mostly up. So if you're wondering about details, I might be able to talk about it at the conversation. So yeah, that's all for the moment at the moment.
Thank you so much, Ina, for sharing more about FDSC's programs and initiatives, and especially about how individual efforts and the difference in the way each person lives can create social change, especially when they all come together. So I know everyone here is looking forward to asking you more questions about this during our roundtable discussion later on. But before we introduce our second speaker, we would like to thank our partners, the Design Center of the Philippines and the Communication Design Association of the Philippines, for helping us make this talk happen. Yeah. So for our next speaker, we have Dang Sering from the Philippines. So she is a writer, artist, and designer, and has been a part of different artist residencies in Japan, the Philippines, and recently in Punjab, India for the 2020 Preet Nagar residency. She also organized the Look Here exhibit that featured works of women graphic designers in the Philippines to elevate the visibility of women in the field, showing their valuable contribution to communities and industries today. So, Dang, I'm now giving the floor to you.
Hi, good morning. Oh, can I share screen? Okay. Hmm. Everybody can hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Hi, good morning, everyone. So I'm Dan. And so my talk is More Seats at the Table, Women in Design in the Philippines. A little bit about myself. I started designing in 2006 when a friend of mine actually invited 4 other friends that, hey, do you want to put up a design studio for nonprofits? I was in the art industry at that time, and I said, okay, let's do it. So since 2006, I've been designing, writing, generally doing cheerleading stuff for a lot of designers and artists. 2011, I went freelance and continue working with different design studios, creative entrepreneurs, and artists. But one thing for sure is from that moment was that I knew that design can really make a difference. So in 2018, I was 37 years old, and that was a watershed moment for me. I was wondering, what will my career look like in my 40s, 50s, and 60s? A lot of the very successful designers that I saw were men, and a lot of my other counterparts either slowed down work, focused on other things. But so this was something that I was thinking about. But at the same time, a lot of amazing projects came my way. And so I was thinking, maybe these are interesting ways to do something for the community. So, and that year, I just came from organizing an art exhibit in July when the invitation came to organize an exhibit on women graphic designers in the Philippines. I was invited by the Communication Design Association of the Philippines to put together a show. And then there were some limitations, like this is the space, we can feature 30 designers, these are the partners, and see what you can come up with. And so that's what I did in October. So this is the exhibit that came out. The title was Look Here. It's to highlight and celebrate women in design. And apparently a lot of people were really actually wondering who else was doing design in the Philippines, who were their counterparts. And I made sure that I invited a range of designers from different industries and those who were just starting out and who were there for more than a decade or two. So this is a screenshot, this is a snapshot of an exhibit, of the setup of the exhibit. So we featured the works and the title cards. I made sure that the photos of the designers write up contact information, and we printed a directory that you can give and share. So this is opening day, and I'll be featuring some works from the exhibit. So this is Micah Arnaldo. She's a designer from Cebu City. She works freelance. She did type and packaging design for Cebu Best. And dried mangoes is one of the strongest exports of Cebu apart from furniture. Blue Thumb, led by Cherry Ko. So her studio did logo, illustration, and packaging for Hinilaban Farms. So these are producers of specialty coffee and are advocates of rainforestation of the mountains of Mindanao. And so they were working also with a foundation that was working for long-term solutions in reducing risks of climate change and attaining food self-sufficiency. Next is Noe Aratan of Resume. So this is a style frame that they did for the American Association of Retired Persons on LGBTQ plus caregiving video animation. And according to Noe, it's to make the audiences discover unsung heroes that they may recognize, the ally in themselves, and fight for a better future for all. And another work is by Works of Art. This is led by Roxy Navarro. And they created a guide to help educate public school teachers and specialists across the country on child protection policies. So this is a few of the women who were in the show, group photo. And what was meant to be a one-off show, actually, we had two spaces to present the exhibit. The secretary of the Communication Design Association of Philippines, Angel Guerrero, hosted us in her new space at the Adobo Creative Hub. And a year later, we will be hosted by the University of Cebu in one of their galleries, and care of Backbone Studio, who helped us set up the show. So apart from an exhibition, not only did I want these designers to be seen and their work seen, but I also wanted to be heard. So we added panel discussions to discuss relevant issues to women in design. So the first one would be, so this is like 10 designers, and I wanted to show, because at this time I thought it was just for one show. So I wanted to show a range of what's it like to be a designer starting out. What's it like to be designers who feel that they're in mid-career, and designers who've been at it for a decade or more, and what challenges they've discovered. A lot of topics obviously can be shared with their counterparts, such as design education, but there are also topics such as raising children that came up. And then the next one would be at the Adobo Creative Hub. So these are, so I learned to keep the number of the panelists smaller for more engaging conversation. So I had a Studio Dialogo, Cynthia Bausan-Are, Rexy Manikis, and Soleil Ignacio, who are graphic designers and illustrators, talk about their work, how they negotiate contracts, how they market and promote their work. And so we saw how they were similar and quite different. And last was in 2019, we were hosted by the Tropical Futures Forum. And in this session, we talked about they were exchanging experiences of working, of how it's like to be working in Manila and Cebu. And what I gladly learned from designers in Cebu, their challenges and also the possibilities in helping grow their community. And so I'm very curious now, since Cebu City is a UNESCO City of Design. Okay. And so from these talks, I was wondering, because a lot of the conversations also like, these are the same issues that we share with men in the industry. Why have an exhibit just for women? I felt that it was important to do that because since we just see a few of women designers on stage, I think this one brought the spotlight to people in the room. So we see each other. Because we rarely do see each other in the industry. We're more focused to where our work is more aligned to, let's say, in fashion or in culture. Or for myself, for a long time, I was more active in the social entrepreneurship sphere, since that was where, and nonprofit, since that was where I was lending most of my design work to. So what do we mean by visibility and how do you increase that? So what we mean by visibility is that invite women, more women to speak at conferences, workshops, feature their profiles and work in publications, invite them to be part of the jury for design competitions, give opportunities to be part of large and impactful projects and programs, encourage and support participation. So I also became very curious about, like, how do we see where invisibility, I mean, we didn't have enough information back then. So I did something to start with. And I'll start with some conferences, a sample of conferences in the Philippines. So I start with one regional conference, and that is Visual Design Conference that ran for 4 years. And from what I saw was that 23% were women, 77% were men. And another was from Design South, previously Graphicon. It's still the same organizers. The Davao Graphic Designers Community, and I saw that it was 20% women, 79% men, and they ran for 6 years. A fairly recent one is Oral Design Conference from Cagayan de Oro City. So they had 33%, 67% men. And then Grafica Manila, it's one of the largest design conferences in the Philippines and the longest running in the region since 2006. So we have here 3 regional conferences, which are great. They highlight local talent, and that is their aim, to highlight local talent and inspire community, and to show that the maturity of the community and the work that's being done in the region. And Graphic and International Conference. So I was able to make another breakdown, since the goal is to invite a lot of international speakers to the country. It's great that we have these events. I think we can never have more of these events. We need more of these events, actually. It's very good in growing the community. It energizes and it highlights local talent. But that being said, also, I think the next step is to invite more women on stage and to present. So why do we need visibility? Because women do bring a lot to the table. We raise the profile, the influence of the women in the design community, increase the value of their work and expertise, and the confidence to participate in programs and initiatives, and inspire other women to lead and have creative confidence to pursue big ideas. So I had 2 other projects that came to me that same year and the next year, and I became more intentional in making, since I can make more decisions in the projects that I was in, I made sure that 50-50 were women or 60-40 were women. So I start with Dorte Asia. I was fortunate enough to join this design and residency program in Japan in 2018. And I was tasked to organize it with my counterpart, Dan Matutina, in 2019. So we held it in Bataan. And so here are one of the designers. And we also picked a range of businesses, from the small businesses to a fairly larger one, and with a local government unit. So this is Jareen from the Philippines, and Vinny Esrita, and they're going around a factory of one of the largest leading food processing company in Bataan. Bagak Tourism, Matoki Koitabashi from Japan, and Happy Garahe, Mark and Johanna Goish. And they look into how the community can be more involved in tourism. And Bagakenu Cashew Nuts, Mika Bakani from the Philippines, and Koji Katsuyama from Japan. So here they are packaging the goodies made by the company. And so I'll talk more about, I'll highlight more about Mika's contribution to the project. So this is the souvenir store, pasalubong store, that the family put up in 2017. And so these are photos of what it currently looked like at that time. And so this is Mika's contribution to the deck and to the idea of rebranding the space and the company. Mika is a designer for Lowbrow, and they design mostly for their restaurants. And so she shares actionable ideas to the owners, what the signage could look like, the front of the store, inside of customer movement, and inside of display products. So when they set up the products, it's easier for the customers to navigate. And finally, this is an illustration that they both conceptualized with her partner, and this is what she did. They suggested a community festival to highlight the cashew orchards, the processes, and to celebrate what the community has in Bataan. And it makes also business sense to help the community. So this program, the Designers in Residence program, is a good experience because it lowers risks for businesses to engage in design. But at the same time, it's a space where designers and these owners can look into the process and can share ideas. So for designers, it's also seeing the passion of business owners who work for their community in the regions and not in a different place, not in usually in big cities. So hopefully they inspire each other. The other project that I really enjoyed was UTME. This is for the launch of the flagship store after the flagship store was launched, they decided to bring UTME to Manila. Anonymous from Singapore, Felix Nang and Jermaine Chong. So they asked Dan and I to curate this collection. And so again, we made sure that it was 50-50. And what also I'd like to add was that we made sure to include designers from different regions in the Philippines. And the last that I'll share is this work by Saleh, just to highlight. And I like that she embraced Morena beauty as an advocacy. And for me, it strikes me as crazy that we still have this conversation now. But I'm glad to be able to champion this, that this is something important for her. And I think it's important also to continue in our culture to expand that concept of beauty. So how might it look like to have a career in my 40s, 50s, 60s? Here's a postcard. I can imagine more possibilities. So don't doubt yourself, believe in your skill, intelligence, and contribution. And I think I wanted to add, don't count yourself out. Easier said than done, but I hope that if you have a friend or colleague who is overthinking, second guessing herself, that you're there to support. Because I think these are a lot of these are new experiences, obviously, that you've never had. And when these opportunities come, I don't think you're ever totally ready for it. So you need support of the community, friends, family, anyone who can be there to support you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dang. It was great to hear about why there's really a need, to increase the visibility of women, especially in the art industry. I know that women have had their share of opportunities to shape our culture, but of course, there is really a need for women to be given more of these opportunities. I hope you're as eager for the discussion as we are, Dang and In-ah, because we're diving right into it. So everyone in the audience can definitely join this conversation by dropping your questions in the Q&A section below that you will see on your screen. So yes, we can start with our first question. Yes. So this is for both Dang and Ina. So it's very easy to talk about a common goal, you know. So individuals usually have their own will to work towards their personal causes that they're passionate about. And I know each one of us in Works of Art has their own advocacy that we work towards. But how do you, I guess, mobilize these people with common goals to work together? And how are you able to sustain this community or space? You can start with Ina because she mentioned earlier that they try to keep their growth small to make the group more sustainable. Maybe Ina can share more. Yes.
Yeah. Well, currently we have like 170 people like communicating, networking in our Slack, but there are about 17 people in administrative team, like helping them, assisting them if they have any needs. So that means if we get like 100 people in at once, then we need like 20 more people in our administrative team. And that means we have to like do more work organizing them, right? So in terms of sustainability, what I meant was that the workload, it's like gathering people together is a huge work and it takes a toll. So we try to do as much as we can do. Like we try not to sacrifice any of our personal lives. So we try to track the time that we spend organizing FDSC at the moment. So we try to keep less than 20 hours per month. So we should, because everyone in our group is working designer, and you know, designers do a lot of overtime and they're busy. So joining this group shouldn't be hard. Like, as I said, it should be pleasurable, it should be fun, and shouldn't be sacrificing anything. It should add something to your everyday life. So I wanted people to be willing to join and do the work. And to be able to do so, I thought it should cost like minimum effort from everybody. So that's why we try to keep the group manageable. That's why we didn't get like all the people who are interested in to join, and keep track of the time, and also try to remind the goal again and again, because when you get used to being inside this community, it's easy to just assume that we all share the same philosophy and same like idea about what should happen, but really no, like everyone has their own version of what should happen, and stuff like that. So that's why we're running a study group to actually like read the text, but also to share our thoughts on the issues of feminism and stuff like that. Yeah.
How about you, Dan?
For Look Here, it was a challenge to invite some older designers. There are some people that I was seeking out because I wasn't that active in the design industry in the early years in 2006. And so when I was putting it together, I had to rely on other people to help me. And why did I want to include older designers? Because of that personal question. And I think people were looking for that as well. But many had their reasons. And so I didn't force some designers to join. Some may have moved on but I feel that they have amazing contributions in design. But that being said, also that I also wanted to appeal to the greater good. I think just to start something, we didn't have enough information, but maybe this one will be the start of this gathering of information. What other women are doing, what do they feel about being a female designer. And a lot of them with the sample group with 30 or more designers was that they didn't feel like they were a woman in graphic design. They were doing design, and hopefully their work will be seen as that. I think yes, that's the goal. But but as I saw later on, but why are we feeling this? What's happening? And and then so this one I think made things more visible. No pun intended. Make more visible to ourselves, and slowly we're looking at what changes that need to be done and how can we contribute more to this.
Thank you for that, Dang. Just a quick follow-up question for both of you. So for for example, for women designers starting out or wanting to do their own groups, or how can we effectively communicate our message to resonate with more people, and how do you reinforce that message? Like, what are the ways in which you have both done that? We can start with them.
Well, I can talk about look here, and I had to do everything one-on-one first. So I do email, talk to women, and sometimes the question comes up with, what's my own work? Because I realized, oh, they work within a design studio and you don't work alone. A lot of people touch on certain projects, and that was a bit of, I think, a sense of insecurity at first. But then eventually when they, compared to freelance designers who work independently, you can actually claim this book you designed yourself. But so talking to them, and I saw that they were a bit nervous about it. I had to convince, and it's very individual. So this is important. I hope you can join. It's nice because you can share about certain work and this and that. To sustain, surprisingly, I didn't have to do it myself. The community embraced it. They opened another space. You can have the exhibit on this second venue. Designers from Cebu, please bring it to Cebu. Okay, let's bring it to Cebu. And we were in talks before with somebody in Baguio, north of Manila in 2020, if we can have it there. And then the pandemic happened. So this is how it happened for us.
In-ah?
Yeah. Well, at first we focused a lot on how we promote ourselves, and like the general impression on feminism is about angry woman who tries to kill men, right? So a lot of the times people have this scary image when you say we created the community for feminist designers. So once at the interviewer even said that, like, I thought you guys were scary, but actually you're funny. And I was like, what were you imagining when when we said we were gathering together? Like, we don't curse people, we just try to have fun, right? So I think we focused on sharing, like recording our events. So we intentionally hired professional female photographers to take photos of our events and share it on our social network. So it looks like, oh, they seem like having fun, and it seems like I want to join. Like, I wanted to make that feeling that I want to join that, and they're like, it seems like they're having fun, and it seems like they're taking advantage of this gathering, you know. So that's the one thing that I focused mostly at first. And as time goes by, I also realized that no matter what you do, and no matter how well you I don't want to say this, but wrap it up, you know, how you promote it, people are gonna ignore it, like, no matter what you do. That's the impression that I got, because they feel that if we are getting bigger, their privilege will get attacked. You know what I mean? So I think they intentionally ignore what's happening. Like at first they thought, oh, that's pretty interesting. And then now, like as the time goes by, it's quite more harder to like promote what we do. So, and I thought maybe it's not so important to show our work. It's more important to like make stronger network inside so people can't ignore our work, you know. So I at the moment I'm focusing more on what's happening inside the community rather than like how outside people sees us.
That's great. Thank you for that, Ina and Dang. I think we can move to our next question. Yeah.
Actually elicited like I suddenly wondered, are people so afraid that suddenly you'll see like a men's design
Oh my.
social club suddenly? But yeah, anyway, it's really cool that yeah, it's really about focusing on the people inside and the people you can take care on the inside. But moving on to the next question. Do you incorporate feminism into your work, specifically in work that delves into other advocacies? Like, is that something that you really put into everything that you do? Um, if so, how? And if it's important at all, or like, is it, yeah, yeah. So I guess we could start with Inna for a change.
Like during the past 3 years, I had this change of ideas. Like at first, I focused more on getting more money to more female designers. So when I work, I only use the fonts that's designed by women designers. And when I collaborate, I hire intentionally the women collaborators and stuff like that. And other than that, I thought design is design, you know, you have the key message and you try to think of the best way to convey that. So like 3 years ago, I couldn't like, other than that, I couldn't connect the feminism with design. It was two separate entity. But then later I start to read about the discourse on feminism design, like feminist design. Like it's been there since like 1980s. And people were talking about what feminist design is. And it's essentially like asking who defined design in our world and who wrote the design history and who defined what's good design, right? And it's mostly white men.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like,
And
oh.
what they say good design is goes to this like, I don't know, upper level elite designers design. And what like we do like outside of Western world, it's just few attempts. Like they try to copy us, you know, like they try to learn from us. And it was true, like at the university in South Korea, we learn about like Swiss design, international study, international style and stuff like that. So like what they were talking in feminist discourse was to break out of it and define design in our own terms. So after that, it got even harder. Like I have to unlearn everything that I thought was good design. And I also learned that to like before that, to earn more money and to assert like designers' role in the design project, I tried to give a concept that designer is a professional in design, you know? So I know what I'm doing. So you have to listen to me. I'm giving you the consultation. I'm giving you the suggestions. But then after reading all these texts, I realized that's very patriarchal way of working. Like design is essentially collaboration, as we were talking about. Like without the text, you can't design. Like without the images, you can't design. So you can't actually say you are orchestrating everything, like you are part of this project. So I tried to have that perspective and try to bring in the images that I thought was not good enough into my design, and try to work with it. So for example, recently I worked with activist who's been working to combat sexual abuse in art industry, and they wanted to make a book that records their work. So I told them, like, and they had these visuals, like they made posters before and they went up to the demonstration and rallying and had this like clumsy pickets that says like stuff about their work. And they were a bit embarrassed about the visuals they already had, because it was done by unprofessional, like not professional designers. It was done quickly by themselves. So they would, I had an impression that they wanted me to create something, some good image, like some sleek and something that's more powerful and stuff like that. But then I convinced them that this is the record of your work, and it is important to bring in those elements that actually happened. So I got an inspiration from their own visuals. So I designed a book like a picket at the rally. So that was the one approach that I tried to incorporate at the moment. Yeah, I hope it answered your question.
Yeah. Actually, to follow up to that, like, knowing that you've actually worked with other groups that delve with feminism as well, like, how do you find those partnerships or allyships, like, and how do you like communicate that na nga na that like it's important that we work together, or like is that just a given thing that we should work together?
So I actually made up some protocol, because most of the times they don't know how to collaborate with designers. So like every time I have to just teach them in a way, like, oh, I need this to understand your project. So at first I actually warned them that I'm gonna ask a lot of questions because I want to do my work well. So I have to know what work you do. So and try to explain what I'm trying to do to them most of the time. So I spent about 1 or 2 weeks, like just learning and just telling them what I'm trying to do, and write up a contract and budget helps that process as well, and set up Notion page actually that outlines what's going to happen when we collaborate together. And
Notion's the best.
and most of the times when I outline what's going to happen in this project, they're quite happy and become really collaborative. Yeah.
So it's really about getting on the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Dang? How do you incorporate feminism into your work? Like, and especially since you work with different advocacies na nga.
Um, Actually, a lot of projects that I've been able to take on, somebody advocated for me to be part of it and felt that I can contribute more. And they understand why I'm there. And they know that I want to have more women in these programs or in these exhibits or in these platforms. And a lot of them are guy counterparts who have these access. And so when I come in, they already know why I'm there and what I'll advocate for. Um, And so I make sure I already communicate that, who is also regularly a creative partner, who's Dan Matutina, who I work with all the time. And then with the design studio in Singapore, Felix and Jermaine, they understand that, oh, this is important to us. And at the same time, I also feel the pressure to, to be better, to expand my own network. That's why I join residencies where I'm asked to be at spaces that I'm not sure also why I'm here. Somebody advocated to have me there and maybe I can do something. And at the back of my mind, it's always, okay, once I'm in, I can do something, I can bring more people in. And if that's not the case, maybe we can make another thing. But these options are available for us. So I think that's how. And also, I think to be paid. I make sure people are paid and equally supported, also fairly. And so that's how I do it, because I work as a freelance independent designer. So wherever I go or wherever I show up, sometimes in surprise and other projects, I always have that in mind. And as Ina also mentioned, even and I'm even in my 40s, there's still so many things that I'm trying to understand, trying to educate myself, reading. And these are so many things ingrained that I find myself surprised that, oh, I have to unlearn that, take that away. And recently, what became more clear to me is that women around my age, they have family, they have children. And sometimes I see that they have to slow down in their careers or step aside sometimes. And when they do that and they get back, the confidence, the creative confidence, does they feel like, oh, they're not up to the game anymore. I hope I can be there to support them. That all the more you have more experiences to share, um, and just stay in the game, I guess, because we need you here. And and so with that, I was also thinking of programs wherein, okay, how do we support women with children, and so that they can, take a break and take on these big projects or big ideas that they want to do. But that's just one side.
Amazing. Yeah, actually, I'm finding like this connection of having to unlearn and relearn, because obviously, like, as women, parang um but we always have like this kind of role that's been placed on us. And yeah, I guess, yeah, just having to relearn and unlearn a lot of things and try to navigate through these things. um but yeah, like, I think that's really amazing that just communicating what you are for, and people reaching out to you, or like knowing how to talk to you already because of what you because you communicate what you're for. I think that's really cool. I mean, the whole point na, because they know that this is important to you, this is why they will work with you, or this is what, like, they can incorporate it, and it becomes just like this bigger thing where it just incorporates the whole um picture, because intersectionality and stuff. Yes. um anyway, uh yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I'll be passing it off to the next question.
Yes. Thank you, Belle. Thank you, Dang and Ina, for your answers. Honestly, so much insight. Personally, as a designer, I tend to take a more passive approach in incorporating feminism in a way. I just try to be as careful with stereotypes in my work, avoiding the usual colors or usual kind of people you would see in design. But after hearing your answers, there's so much more I can improve on, from like buying type from designers and learning, unlearning. Oh my gosh, I need to read a lot. Thank you for sharing, Ina. And Dang as well. I love that you're both very passionate in what you do. Anyways, for the next question, this one's a bit, I guess, a little more serious, but for both of you, what are some of the challenges you encounter as a woman creative there in Korea and in Philippines, and what are your challenges as well having to rally people together, rallying women together? So I think we can start with Ina, because we'd also like to learn your experience and challenges that you encounter starting up FDSC.
Well, actually, organizing FDSC is easy. Like for me, there's no challenges in that. Everyone's so collaborative and everyone's so passionate, and it's just fun. Main challenge is in outside FDSC in the world. I used to work at a design agency here for 2 years, and there I was almost traumatized, like working in a design agency because of like this strong hierarchical structure is there. And I was asked to work on the too many projects. Like when I'm able to cover one project, they'll put another project on me. So I have to stay late and just work. And they thought that's the and they liked it, me suffering, like, and they thought I was a passionate designer who's willing to stay up all night. And at that time, I think I was gaslighted or something. So I had no problem working like that. But I had this, at the end of 2 years, I had this mental health issues. So like nobody's like built to work like that. And it's weird thinking, like when you look at it again, it's weird to think that working overnight is passionate, because it's hurting yourself, and when you don't sleep you can't think straight, which means you can't design. So there's this weird notion of what passionate designer is. And so I decided I can't like work as a designer at an agency, and I tried to find other positions, but then I was traumatized by my first experience. So I decided to freelance instead and try my own way of working. And there were many things that I didn't understand the way they worked. Like when the client asked for like edits, like 100 times, they will just say yes and just do the work. But I didn't get it. Like, how long are you going to edit your design until everyone's happy, you know? Like you have to like able to talk to them. But then it was not allowed. So I wanted to experiment my own way of working. So I started freelancing. But then later, I also learned that a lot of women have similar experience as myself. They get traumatizing experience at work, and they think they decided working freelancing, but then it's actually the structure that kicks them out, you know? Yeah, so that was my challenges.
I actually have a follow-up to that. Is that like a an issue of like that's a kind of, how do I word it? Um Set on women specifically, or is it just like a culture thing? Nah.
I think it's a general culture, but the thing is, it's very similar to military culture. That you know how all the Korean man has to go to military, And I think they learn that culture through there, and it's applied to workplaces as well. So to women's eye, it's really strange. Like, why can't you ask questions? Like, it's too strongly hierarchical. And when you first enter the industry, you get treated really bad. Like, no matter what you do, you get criticized unfairly and stuff like that. And I felt really bad for the boys as well, like working with me. But then they were able to like manage that because they understand the structure. Like, if they deal with it at first, just swallow it at first, later they will get to that position, and they will be able to do the same to the people who enter the industry. But for women, it's foreign culture to them, so it's harder for them to adjust to that culture. Yeah, that's my observation of that culture. Like, it applies to everyone, but people deal with it differently.
So scared, so patriarchal, so macho. Sorry, go proceed.
Thank you,
Rafi.
Ina. Yeah, sorry, my internet's a little unstable at the moment, but I heard everything you said, naman. I see that similar experience here as well, in the Philippines, actually. And I'm not sure if there's other people who've started a group like you here yet, like a. Anyways, no, wala ako, sorry. Anyways, so I'll pass on the question to Dang. What are some of your challenges as a creative, a woman creative attending these artist residencies, if any, or as just a creative in general?
From my personal experience, I am my toughest critic. And I found that with other women that I work with. They really feel like they have to push themselves, that they're at par. And and I understand where that's coming from later on. When I read about imposter syndrome, why is that happening? Because most of these spaces that we're in generally just have one or two women in the program. And so it's not normal to see a balance of these conversations between men and women counterparts. So when I do enter into these residencies, I'm there to challenge myself, to expand my world, and to see how I can, learn from others. And when I do find myself talking to some women creatives, artists, there's always that nagging feeling that, oh, is my work good enough? How is this? And is this cool enough? Is this at par? And I find myself supporting. That's the best that I could do. No, your work is good. Just try it out. Don't count yourself out. So I say it's easier said than done. We're our toughest critics. It's difficult. If you don't see a lot of women very successful in your field and sharing that, so you feel like you're on your own and you're starting. But in fact, they're there. You just don't get to talk to them. With other things. So what's more pronounced with the women that I talk to is that it's this creative confidence and imposter syndrome that they have to deal with all the time. And I think the way to only do that is to open up more opportunities for them to practice that creative muscle to do better. So for myself, I do follow individual careers of designers. And if something clicks, like I'm seeing their work, they're trying out something new, they want to do this, and they share it with me, I try to look within my own network or share with other people, can you help this person out? And I think further along, you open up the space for more women designers, and I hope it just feels normal that we're as great as our counterparts, because the lack of visibility just strengthens subconsciously the idea that we're not there yet.
Thank you. Indeed, that's one of the creative challenges I see as well. Underrepresentation, because I believe in the saying that you can't be, or it's hard to imagine being something when you can't see it. So being able to see these successful women, you guys doing these things, opening up these spaces, makes it feel like I could also do something like that one day, maybe when I'm not as introverted as I am now. But really grateful for you guys for opening these platform and spaces. And it's normal to have challenges. Yeah. Yeah, so I'll pass on for the next question. Jamie will be handling it.
Hi. I actually have separate questions based on Dang and Ina's talks. So I'm gonna ask of one first for Ina. You mentioned a while ago that before you couldn't connect feminism and design, like it was like it was two different roles. Based on your experiences, can you tell us like the process in which you connected those things as an individual role, like it's not separate roles?
Well, it was only after the reading the texts and learning that there are people who tried methods that feminist design. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this designer's name properly. In America, Sheila Lavrent Bradfield, she in 70s or 80s, she made a feminist design method, which you can apply to your work. And I don't think that's the only way to do it. But then not like learning that she has set up that way of thinking helped me a lot. And a lot of it was the things that I already did. Like I was already doing the work in that way. And oftentimes I doubted that if that's why my work is not good enough and stuff like that. So learning that it's one approach to design gave me a lot of confidence and got to experiment more. And once I learned that what I'm doing is already been experimented, I start to wonder what I can do more from here. So in that way, I also start to think what I can do as a South Korean designer in my position. So that's when those two ideas came together and I felt confident doing more. And I think a lot of designers who joined FDSC also sees feminist and designer two separate entity, and that gives them anxiety because they don't feel designer enough, they don't feel feminist enough. And a lot of the times on the media when they introduce feminist design, it's mostly the works that deals with feminist issues. So, and when you think about it, there are only few people who can work on feminist issue. Like when you're working at a company, like for example, beauty company, and you always have to create an image telling people that using this product to make them beautiful. In that case, and you agree with feminist philosophy that you feel this like, oh, I'm not feminist enough because I create this image. But then making that beauty product image, you can also have that feminist approach and make new image, right? So I think it's really important to find a way to like combine them two and apply to your own context. And I think it's doable to everyone.
Well, thank you, Ina, for that. I guess the takeaway that I got there is that there is this level of confidence as a designer and as a woman to actually just bring it out there to the world. So thank you. Now I have a question for Dan. Like based on what you've mentioned, you said that I guess at least for the Philippine context, it's not something that we close on feminism and design, but more on the lack of visibility for individual designers. I know you've mentioned that for you being having opportunities to actually share other roles, other designers. I just like to ask how like if there is like a very small like disparity in terms of actually how do I say this, showcasing each individual designers to the regions in Philippine the regional scene. Sorry, did I make sense?
Do you mean that there's not enough representation from designers from other regions apart from Metro Manila?
Yes.
It's true. I think so. From my experience, like the big events usually happen in Metro Manila, and people do come. Like you have it's a great event, Graphica Manila. People do come. But I saw that there were also regional conferences that are happening that are featuring local talent. And for me, that's a great thing. So I think maybe it's just keeping to our silos that we're not seeing each other. So, and what I saw in the exercise of putting up Look Here and doing all these programs is to always look beyond Metro Manila. Look at what other designers are doing. What are their concerns? And how do you support them in ways that you can? Representation of their work in Manila, yes, not much. But we've been slowly strengthening networks. We have friends in Cebu, in Mindanao, and we're in constant communication. Like, how can we make things better? That the spotlight is shared. We can help develop work in ways that we all can. Yes, Galing Visayas is a great project. This is spearheaded by Bricks of Heart. I think Nikki did that. So for me, that's great. I think if everybody do their own initiatives and uh, just share. I think show these works, and then people will able to spot them, because these things I found through my networks, and I'm so glad that friends would bring these things to me, these projects. Hey, this is a great project. What do you think about it? And okay, maybe I can connect them to other people, or personally when people come to me and this is something that I'm interested about, and then so I try as much as possible to champion their work.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Actually, Belle wants to follow up a question.
Yeah, so actually this is kind of related to a question here that came from the Zoom chat from Elisa. How do we make design more accessible for women who are also at the disadvantaged end of the digital divide, considering like yan na nga, how it's very centralized in Metro Manila, or all these or rather the major cities of the Philippines. So like how, like, do we make it more accessible for women who might not be in these major cities, or might not have that like access to technology or time and space to learn, if if that's if yeah, if you might have an input about that. Damn, it's a big question.
Thank you for that big question.
It's a big question.
I think the talk yesterday, somebody mentioned that uh, there are people in the regions or in the provinces or rural areas. Some may have access to at least a phone with 3G or 4G.
Mhm.
And I think also apart from design is we need to see how information is being processed. Uh, that I think we have to understand, like in this era of fake news, like how are people digesting these information. As for design, I can just think about what we did when I was designing for nonprofits then. So you're doing work you're using licensed programs, and then when you pass on the work to these smaller organizations, like how do they work within the framework that you designed, the brochure or other things. And so you had to think about what kind of computers they're using. Are they using Word? And how do you design things within Word so that they can change certain text within that they can do well as designers, and cascading information that they themselves understand how to process information through design. What is to be prioritized and what are certain details. But I think that goes hand in hand also with, again, like media literacy. How do we read information and how do we process that? I think there's a lot more that we can do, need to do actually. And yes, in the chat, Nikki mentioned. So I think those are one of the things that we saw. And for those who have access to, let's say, computer internet, but don't have these other design tools, they can make on their own, and you can find that they learn on YouTube, and that's easy. But for the digital divide, gosh, I think there are other tools that you can use. Okay, so in college, I didn't have any computer, I didn't know what to do, and I had to promote an event. And so I had to do collage and just photocopy things. I think that's one way you can do it. Like, what tools are accessible within the area? Is it, do you have to cut things, make a collage, just to show to the community what's important? So I think design tools can help. I think it's the thinking to process information and how to present that. I think that's important.
That's true. I think, yeah, design can come from anywhere and can come in many, like, doesn't have to specifically like follow a specific aesthetic to just be called design. So that does make sense. Wow. Jamie.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something that I read. But what do you call this? How do you empower those who don't have as much access? I think one of the easiest / hardest thing to do is actually just reach out to them, like go to them personally, so that they could so that they could learn what the things that they can do. This isn't my personal experience, but sometimes people just they don't know what they can do because nobody is there to share them of all the possibilities to go to, and maybe in their environment, it's just not as, what do you call this? Like maybe in their environment, nobody does it. So I think one of the best things to do is really go to them, reach out to them. Yeah, basically, which is a lot of work. TBH, you have to interact. Yes. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, a follow-up for Dan. We want to know if being a woman and the qualities that come with it inform how we design, and if so, how?
Shocks. For the past, I think, years, I was thinking, oh, is there a certain approach because you're a woman? Sometimes I think, are there certain expectations? Are they expecting some kind of gendered design? For example, aesthetically, how it will show up. Process, I'm not quite sure anymore. But with the women that I meet usually, they're more participatory. They open up. They think of other people. Like, oh, this is my teammates. Can I do this and that? Actually, I'm still thinking about it. Like, is it still true? Or these are messages that are expected on us and that we should do that? Because there are also a lot of people, even men, who I found think progressively. And these ideas I found first from them. And then they're also from women. But I think the goal is, if you mean by feminist thinking, is that everybody's equal. You can learn from everybody. And everyone is a resource person for that. So that's what I look at it. That's how I see it now. But for me, it's still changing with it, through theory, the reading that I'm doing, and also through practice. Like, do these things still hold? Is it still true? But then at the same time, okay, what do I have to bring forward? What will be more helpful for women, for everyone? What kind of practice, what kind of thinking, what kind of process? And gladly, everything is, some of them, but a lot of it do come from feminist thinking. And and also how it, intersectional thinking, to put it that way, that we're moving in privileged spaces. A lot of the women that I work with or are well educated. And so I think of, okay, how do we do better and in our different capacities. So there are programs that, like Dorte Asia, that brought me to Bataan, that saw that, okay, there are other possibilities that I can do. But for me, it's an ongoing process. But I'd also really would also love to hear from In-ah what she thinks.
Yes, Ina, we have the same question for you as well.
I was just noting to what Dan was saying and agreeing to everything that she was saying. I think she brought up really good, like, important points that we can learn from anybody, and it's not necessarily be designers who can inspire us. So just want to add a case that reminded me of what this idea is. That I was reading this book called working to the queer theory, and it's not like from the outside, it doesn't look that greatly designed. Like it looks like someone who's not trained as a designer designed it. And it had picture of a dog on the cover, although it was called queer theory, working to the queer theory. And as I started reading the book, I discovered that that work was in the perspective of that dog who was on the cover. So the book was really thick, and I thought it's not walking to the queer theory, it's almost like climbing to the queer theory because it's heavy text. But then it in definition of dogs walk, climbing the mountain for 4 hours is a walk. And he doesn't necessarily walk by the path that man made. He will explore to other many ways. And the book was explaining the queer theory is like that. It's like walking to other areas and understanding things in different perspective. So after reading that, I realized that the using of the picture of a dog, and inside the book there was a picture of a dog walking, so like starting working, going to the mountain, drinking water, and refused to go back to home because he wants to walk more. And I realized that that's the wonderful way to convey the message in this book. And I started to wonder who designed this book. And when you think about in a traditional way, it's designed by someone who's not trained in a traditional way. And maybe putting a dog's image is not idea of the designer. It's maybe the idea of the author. Then is the author the designer of this book? Because I liked the design of putting the dogs in this book. Yeah, like just wanted to add that episode of mine, like when we think about we can learn from everyone, and I think expanding the idea of what design is pretty important.
Thank you so much, Ina and Dang, for sharing so much during our roundtable discussion. I think it's time for us to take some questions from the audience. I think it would be meaningful for both the speakers and our audience to, hear some of hear some of Dang and Ina's answers for these. So maybe Belle can start us off.
Okay. Uh, oh, okay. So, um, it's great to hear from fellow women try to build this like-minded community, but I was wondering if it is important to engage with men to help raise their women counterparts. Like, yeah, is it important at all? Like, should men be involved? In your perspectives?
Um, Maybe Dang can go first.
Yes. I think it should be part of their work, because for one, it only makes the community and industry better. They have to support women's work, some of our goals and ambitions, um, because again, it only makes the community and industry better. And why, although we do have women leaders in the design industry, uh, we have Executive Director of Design Center of the Philippines, Rhea Matute, and who's also with that thinking. Um, there's still spaces, or there's still that are male dominated, and they do run these spaces, and these platforms have a big impact, and it's only, I think, for the greater, for the better, for the good of everybody. that they do support it, because like half of the population are women who use the products and services, and bringing more women, different people with insights and experiences just improves the services, the product, just for example, for the commercial sense of these things, but also for the well-being of women designers. So if we understand that women design, a lot of women do find caretaking of their children a priority. So to find ways to support that and get them back, designing or taking care of a child or an elder relative, or other things that sometimes we women we take on because it's important for us. But also I think they should have that at the back of their minds, and also we should share more that um, uh, we have to participate in world building in that sense. Like, what will the future look like? So you have to have more people sharing these things, because we're continuously shaping. And I don't know where I read it, but design as an industry has the biggest opportunity to be more inclusive.
Yeah. It'll only get better if everyone is included, if everyone has their input. Truly. I will pass it off to Rafi for the next question. Oh my gosh, no. In-ah. In-ah.
Let's have Ina
What do you
answer the question
think?
first.
Oh my gosh, sorry. Go, In-ah.
I think, like, I don't know how this would sound, but when you think about it, this whole mess of gender inequality and discrimination is made by men.
Yes.
Job to fix it in a way, like in this structure is made by men, and they are taking advantage from this structure. So I think it is very crucial that they see what they've made and try to fix it. We women, because we are discriminated, we have to do something about it on our own terms, to suggest maybe alternatives or stuff like that. And I think it is really, I don't know why we should be fixing like this mess that men made. It's not our job. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah. Truly. But okay, follow up to that now. Like, do you have like allyship, and like do you have like partners, like partnerships with men? Like, have you found allyship with men that help support like you guys? Or is that still like hard? Still looking for those gems?
It's really hard to see what your privileges are, like when you think about it.
Yeah.
Even for us, like we have our own privilege. Like me as a person who lives in Seoul, working as a graphic designer, I'm female, and I'm straight, and I don't have any disability for the moment. And in that term, I have my own privilege that I enjoy, and it's hard to face it. And I understand why it's hard for men to face their own privileges. And when you first face it, it actually is not so pleasurable.
Mm-hmm.
And when you first recognize it, it's not so easy. So I understand the reaction, and but I hope they try more.
They should. They should. Okay. Thank you for that. Rafi?
Yes. I don't know if this. I actually want to ask, like, how do we face our privilege? In a constructive way, I guess. Because I know, I definitely know I have them, and how do we acknowledge these and make do with these privileges? Is that enough?
I guess you just have to study.
Studying.
Yeah.
Indeed. That's true.
And try to meet diverse people.
Mm.
So and try to share the perspective and learn to share perspectives in a safe space and learn to create a safe space. Last time when I was organizing a study group, I set up a series of rules that to say it is okay to say it's my opinion, and it is okay to say that I don't know or I'm not sure, and try to say things and understand where you come from. And to do so, you just have to learn a lot, like to understand where you are, and in that term, it's quite fun because you learn where you are, and it's about yourself, not about others. And I think when you learn about the minorities that you didn't even realize before, the world just gets bigger for you. And the latest thing that I learned about is about animal rights, and it taught me how having a language or having ability to articulate what you mean is a privilege, and it is not okay to discriminate anyone or any animal because they can't articulate their position. So that gave me whole lot more perspective on how I see the world. So it's fun in that way. I hope that I encouraged a bit more of learning.
Yeah, definitely. Learning is always a good thing. Okay, so I'll go to the audience question here. So somebody's curious of how one could be able to brew more creative confidence. So they related to the experiences of being gaslit in the unhealthy work environment and having constant imposter syndrome. And she has a hard time, or he actually, she has a hard time keeping energized. So they're interested on how you could keep having creative confidence. I also do wonder that because I tend to have low energy.
Same. Help.
So let's start with Dan.
Well, apart from, I think I do research that also because I think I still have anxiety all the time. The new work that I'm doing. And it also makes sense because the things that I'm doing are it will be the first time that I'll be doing them. So it's scary. And for imposter syndrome, I have people who I can talk to, people who I trust, like friends, family, partner. Like, oh, I'm struggling with this part. what can I not see about this work? And then they support me. But then it ends up, it's still with me. I have to show up, do the work, and just be glad to be able to do the work, which also Ina mentioned. To be a graphic designer, also in the Philippines, it's quite a privilege to be able to travel and have these experiences. So I think just testing yourself, being curious. I think it's important to be curious about the world, other people, and continuously just testing yourself. And as Ina also mentioned, but in a different setting, also be in a safe space where people can give you feedback. Because in the end, it's just information to improve. If you get rejected, then you know what to do next. But it's an ongoing thing. There are people that I talk to in their 50s, 60s were super big and were doing great, but they still struggle with this. But I think what they do differently is that they do the work, they show up.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan, for the encouragement. In-ah?
I agree with everything what Dan said. I still feel that insecurity too. And the only thing you can do is just practice showing your work. And I once told one of the students who asked me the same question, like, how many likes do you want when you post up your work? Like, like how many are you expecting? Like, do you need like hundreds? Does that mean it's a good design? Like, when you actually show your work, people aren't that interested anyways. So it's good if you get a reaction, but the world is not gonna end because you posted your work internet. You know what I mean? Like, because you showed your work to other people. The world, like, that's not the end of the decision of what kind of designer you are, you know? So practicing showing your work on the internet or like anywhere is actually a practice. So as you do more and more, you learn how to show your work too. So later, when you have, for example, a book, you have more idea of how I can present this work so people understand it better, you know, like, and it takes practice too. So when you think about it as a practice and just show your work more and more, in that way you I think you build a confidence as well, and this got to say, oh, whatever, you know. So I suggest to think as like just undermine it, like consider it as like something small. Try like try tell yourself it's nothing. That's what I do. I'm not sure what that does to my mental health, but I do that.
Try that out.
Okay. Thank you, Ina and Dang. I think that's all the time we have right now for Q&As, but I actually have one last question to wrap this discussion up. I wanted to ask both Ina and Dang what your dreams are for the design industry in your country. Maybe we can start with Dang.
I think the design industry, the community is relatively young. So I think there's more that we can do. And my dream is that more people can participate and can find that they can contribute to the growth of the industry, to support the community, and they feel that they're not hindered to be able to do these things.
Mhm.
They will always find support. Because I really believe that in design, It helps people imagine what a better society will look like and how things will improve. If more people do participate and do share their voice, we we'll just have a better country, actually. As Rhea Matute of Design Center mentioned, good design is good governance.
Yeah.
How about you, In-ah?
Like there are many things that I want. One thing that I want to tell you is that I hope the Korean design industry to be more open to outside. Like when you, it's like South Korea is like an island at the moment, so we don't get much contact with other Asian countries. So today's opportunity is really a good opportunity for me. Like it's really hopeful one that I get to network with other Asian designers. And I hope there is more opportunity like this. And yeah, that's about it. And when Dan was doing her presentation, I actually have to say this. I was quite surprised that your statistics on the conference, the men and women ratio, it's the result is really surprisingly the same in South Korea as well. So when we get to discuss these things among Asian designers, I think we'll find a lot of common issues and things that we can talk about. So yeah, thank you for inviting me again.
Thank you so much, Ina. I know we have a lot of unanswered questions, and we'll surely take note of these. And it's an opportunity to move this conversation to our Discord community group, which we'll share more details on later. So yeah, I just want to thank both Ina and Dang for being a part of this talk. And I'm not a designer, so, but I do believe that it is very important, to incorporate feminism in design. And I believe in it more because of Dang and what Dang and Ina shared. I know that design has, like, the potential to change perspectives and break stereotypes. And if it has that power, then why not? Why not incorporate feminism into this thing? So it's an opportunity to really put forward, that need for equality between men and women, opportunity to create sensitive design that could be a tool to push for inclusivity. So I believe that it's really important for us to do this. I want to invite then Belle, Rafi, and Jamie to maybe share some of the insights they got from the talk.
Ooh, I have a lot of insights. Wow. A lot of insights, but I can't think of anything right now. Joke lang. My main takeaway is really just the domino effect of it, like the importance of invisibility, visibility, and how from personal experience, like shout out to Rax. It really, like, she gave a talk in our school, and she told us what her work was, and that was the moment I was just like, wow, that's possible. Like, this is actually an option for me. And I think that visibility is so important na nga. I keep saying, it's so important because it really, from there, it really becomes a domino effect of just making it possible for people, for women, for younger women, for girls, to, like, imagine, like, more options for themselves. Like, no, you don't have to go into an agency. Like, no, you can, there are people who can live off of, like, their illustration work, their design work. Like, these things are actually possible. And these things have only been made possible or visible because of people being visible. So it's like, uh and it's just, it always starts with those small ideas, or like just those ideas and wanting to push through with them. So it's just, yeah, uh my heart. And just seeing that community, I mean, these illustrators, these designers kind of grow online, like it's just really inspiring. Yeah.
Mhm.
Go
Yeah.
Ra-
I agree. I agree with you, Belle. Na the visibility aspect is really important. Na especially like for people in other aspects and other terms, like people with anxiety or depression. It's really important important to like see these other women have these creative confidence and being able to do this thing, because it makes you see, like, imagine a good future like that it's possible now. So that's one of my key takeaways. So visibility is definitely important for women. I also really appreciate your um, tips or like guidelines that In-ah shared when she started FDSC. So especially since we have this Discord group now, so I'll keep those in mind. So like making sure that they have a pleasurable experience, that they have tangible change, and they experience it on an individual level, and then making sure that everyone is on the same page or have like the same goal in mind, that they are aligned. So I really appreciate that. Then I'll start a community that's like one day.
Let's make our own Philippine.
Teach us. Yeah, so that, and I had one more insight or takeaway from this, is that I have a lot to learn. We have a lot to learn talaga. We just need to keep learning, meeting people,
Yeah.
seeing, pushing our limits, or seeing where we can take ourselves, and having the courage to do new things. Sorry, this is a fidget toy because I am anxious. So yeah, so those are my three key takeaways. Jamie, do you have any insights, Jamie?
Well, like Paulina, I'm also not a designer, but being part of this talk really did widen my horizon in terms of design and feminism, and like what Ina said and Rafi, we just have to continue studying to be able to solve more problems and issues in these aspects. So yes, I'm very, very thankful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So before we end the session, we would like to thank the Design Center of the Philippines again for being one of our partners for this talk. They actually recently begun accepting entries for this year's Good Design Award Philippines. So the Good Design Award Philippines is a national biennial design excellence recognition system that seeks to discover local artists, designers, and businesses with outstanding designs that embody the universal design values of form, function, innovation, and also the Philippine value of malasakit or compassion. So to submit your entries, you may go to the link flashed on the screen, and the deadline is until July 31. Yeah. So it's always great to hear powerful women speak. And I want to thank both of you for sharing so much with us today and inspiring us women to continue the great things that we do. And thank you as well to everyone in the audience for joining the conversation and rallying women in and for design. So we're very excited to see you all again for our last talk on branding messages of a better future later at 3 p.m. If you want to continue this conversation, we have a Discord community you can join called the Good Design Club, which is an open space for designers and members of social organizations to connect, collaborate, and converse. So through our Discord community, we hope this space will become a starting point for those interested in working on projects for impact. So visit gooddesign.club to join. And if you also want to check out the work of our speakers, you can follow them and check their social media accounts flashed on the screen. So yeah, again, I would like to thank everyone for joining us this morning, and I hope to see you guys again later. Stay safe.
Yay!
Thank you, In-ah.
Thank you, Ina. Thank you, Dang, who's not here anymore. Woohoo!
In-ah, do you remember me? Do you remember me? It's so nice to see you again.
Okay.
Oh, I want to cry. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye,
Let's cry
everyone.
in our individual things. Let's have lunch. Goodbye.
Bye, Ina. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Tapos na ba yung talk? Are people still here? Okay, joke. Bye.